Hello, and welcome to this installment of the Future Grind podcast. I'm your host, Ryan O'Shea, and today I'll be speaking with Amir Banifatemi, the General Manager of Innovation and Growth at XPRIZE. XPRIZE is a nonprofit organization that offers cash prizes to encourage teams to create technology capable of solving humanity's grand challenges and bringing us closer to a better, safer, more sustainable world. In this role, Amir is directly involved with prizes including the $5 million IBM Watson AI XPRIZE and the $10 million ANA Avatar XPRIZE. In addition to his work with XPRIZE, Amir is a co-founder and curator of the AI for Good Global Summit, which he helps to lead in association with the United Nations. Amir is also a co-founder of AI Commons, a nonprofit organization that seeks to make using and benefiting from AI available to all. We discuss what XPRIZE is and how to get involved, strategies to enable anyone to participate in solving the world's most pressing issues, and much more. As always, show notes and links are available at futuregrind.org. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever podcasts are found. A video version of this episode is posted on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe on all of these platforms, leave a review, and you can also like, comment, and share to spread the word. If you'd like to keep this podcast running, you can donate at futuregrind.org/support. Because of you, this is Future Grind. All right, and now we are here with Amir. Amir, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Ryan.
So you are involved with many different organizations, but your title at XPRIZE is General Manager of Innovation and Growth. And I think those two words, innovation and growth, are a pretty good representation of what all your various roles and responsibilities seem to focus on. Would you say that's accurate, or how would you describe your focus?
Thank you, Ryan. Yes, I'm lucky to work with XPRIZE, which is a nonprofit organization that's trying to solve and expose a number of innovations from the crowd. Innovation for us is really to push the boundaries of new directions and new findings, and growth is really to grow our footprint and how we can solve more problems. So in fact, yes, my focus is on both sides, is how to keep being innovative and audacious and bold, and try new experiments, but at the same time find ways to sustain them and grow the organization's impact and goals.
So I know you've done various things. What is your background, and how did you end up on the path you're on now?
So like many entrepreneurs, I have a very complex or varied background. I'm a software and a hardware engineer at the foundation. I've done many years of research. I was involved into a few startups, and eventually was successful to exit from two of those startups in medical imaging and space imaging and Earth observations. And that led me to become an investor, angel investor initially, and then part of a fund. And so I'm going fast through those descriptions because the path that we choose to do what we want is either motivated by career or by curiosity. And mine was definitely more motivated by curiosity and this desire to experiment on an ongoing basis. And when I was an investor, I was not satisfied with just investing. I was always trying to be involved with companies and startups to help them grow, find the product market fit, or find ways to improve the impact of that startup. So when I met with XPRIZE a few years ago, that matched very well my goals of helping not just one startup, but many. And XPRIZE has this wonderful capability of connecting to the world of innovators everywhere and giving them a chance to solve a problem. So this is where I am right now. And my background has helped me both from a technology perspective, from a business development perspective, from an understanding of research like academia, to have the language and experience of working with very different groups of people and really have this opportunity to discuss with them specifics of business or technology or market growth or impact.
You mentioned there's some work you've done with startups in the space industry, and I know you've also done some work with the European Space Agency. So I'd love to get into that in a bit more detail. What did your work in the space industry consist of?
As a young engineer, I was hired very early on by European Space Agency to work on microgravity experiments. And those experiments are really to be able to identify ways to either work on molecular research or different type of biological experiments in space. So that was basically my role, and I was working on few different experiments. Was one on medical imaging and representation of ultrasound imagery in space for astronauts. That was my first job, and out of that, I grew into this love of the intersection of space and all the technologies that go into space, but also this opportunity that space opens to all of us.
We talked a bit about XPRIZE in my first question, and I'm sure that much of my audience is already familiar with this, but just to clarify things for those who aren't, what is XPRIZE and what is its purpose?
XPRIZE is today the largest organization that creates, design, and operates very large public competitions. Those competitions are built around white spaces and areas where we need to make progress for humanity, and for which there may not always be an opportunity for startups by themselves to go after those opportunities, or there's not enough government funding or venture capital funding. But yet there is a vision that in the near future, some of those problems or opportunities have to be accelerated. So XPRIZes are public competitions that are designed to help the community of problem solvers come together and try to solve them and try to put new opportunities of solutions or products visible to everyone. So that's what XPRIZE does. We obviously started with space, with the Ansari Prize. We have been working on multiple XPRIZes, whether they're in the domains of learning or healthcare or exploration, whether exploration in space or the oceans, capturing carbon from the air, or civil advocacy, or simply promoting the use of artificial intelligence. But the one that probably I'm more involved right now are the Artificial Intelligence XPRIZE, which is about how to use AI to impact development and progress of humanity in many domains. And the second one, which I'm involved also, which I'm very excited about, is the Avatar XPRIZE, which consists of identifying ways for us to transport ourselves through physical robots in different places and different times. And these are the two that I think are exemplary of how XPRIZE really puts out a competition which is complex and yet gives opportunity to many teams to come forward and try to solve a specific set of technical and also societal and progressive issues at the same time.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the $10 million ANA Avatar XPRIZE there, because this is a newer prize that's still in its early stages and is one that people still have an opportunity to get involved with. Now, when people hear the word avatar, they often think of digital avatars, things that represent us in video games or in virtual reality or on the internet. But in this context, you're talking about an actual physical thing. So what is the ANA Avatar XPRIZE, and what's the goal?
The design and the goal of the ANA Avatar XPRIZE is to help us bring our sense of presence, actions, and capabilities to another place and another location. The notion of avatar is usually thought of as a virtual avatar, which is a visual representation of our personas. So there could be a very resemblant or less resemblant form, but we're trying to stay away from that by saying there is another concept of us wanting to be there, be somewhere else. So imagine the situation where there is a hurricane or a natural disaster somewhere and you want to be a volunteer, but you may not be able to travel easily and the carbon footprint is too much for too many people to travel. And yet you want to be there and participate and help. And you could have capabilities such as being a nurse or a plumber or an antenna engineer or different capabilities. So how can you go and participate in helping that disaster scene or disaster recovery area a few thousand miles away and help with your capability and skills without being there? Well, you need to have a proxy. You need to have something that extends your capabilities. So those capabilities could be extended through virtual reality and augmented reality if they were just in terms of ideas, in terms of presence, physical presence if you wanted to talk to someone. But if you wanted to be active somewhere, like lift a heavy item or repair something or take someone's hand and bring them from one place to another, you need the help of a robot or you need the help of a physical action. So the goal of AN Avatar XPRIZE is to really incentivize this notion that tomorrow specific forms will exist that will live within us in society, that will be tethered, right, or connected robots to us, that would not be autonomous robots, that would not be just humans, but will be robots that will be connected to humans to extend us. So those extensions will actually have some autonomous capabilities in terms of machine vision, in terms of understanding the scenes and detecting through sensors what's out there, but also send back to the operator, which is any one of us, operating that robot remotely, the ability to understand what's there remotely and feel it as we were there. So this notion of no latency or close to no latency, of being somewhere else while we are here, but this notion of being in two places almost at the same time is what this prize is about. And that will help solve a number of technical challenges, but also showcases at a society level how we are thinking about living with avatars. What would mean having physical senses in front of us? Are we going to be afraid of them? Are we going to be accepting them? We know that they're not going to be totally conscious or autonomously doing things, but how can we accept that someone else's presence is part of us and they're helping out? So this is what the Avatar XPRIZE is about, and not only is this a very exciting competition, it's probably one that will be universally acceptable by many cultures and countries. And the way we're going to be approaching it from different perspective of academia or technology or industry or just cultural aspect of social norms will be very interesting to pursue.
So some of those abilities sound similar to the ones that are put to the test in the DARPA Robotics Challenge, which is a Department of Defense challenge involving human-supervised robots that can operate tools and machinery and can drive vehicles. Now, the DARPA challenge is said to be focused on disaster relief, but anytime you're talking about military robots, people get a bit uneasy, and understandably so. It's pretty clear how a robot that could accomplish the goals of the DARPA Robotics Challenge could be weaponized. But in the case of the Avatar XPRIZE, the technology seems to be specifically for peaceful and humanitarian purposes. Talk a bit about this. How is this competition different than the DARPA Robotics Challenge, and how are you making sure that the technology these teams are developing will be used for good?
Thank you for this question, Ryan. The DARPA Robotics Challenge has been probably one of the most impressive challenges in the past few years, and we're following on the pathway of that. The goal is not to have autonomous robots that will be sent for specific missions. The number one goal is to have robots that are controlled by humans completely. So whatever human will put behind them will control those robots. So there could be a school teacher, could be a plumber, could be an engineer, could be a medical doctor, could be a volunteer. We're talking about disaster recovery, but mostly we talk about situations of education, supporting youngers and elderly, situations of exploration where we can go places that are difficult to access. We can, for instance, think about cleaning a nuclear core or basically being on the moon or the space station somewhere and do things that humans can't do. So it is an extension of humans. They are not talking about autonomous robots. Talking about weapons and negative impacts of autonomous robots, we're not trying to use them for that, and we're not trying to incentivize for that. It's up to the competitors and all the teams that are coming with solutions to not only be creative in terms of what forms those avatars could take, but also propose how, through the scenarios that I'm going to give to them, showcase and demonstrate that these robots are connected to humans totally, and this is an extension of human persona, and this is something that the human can do. So if you talk about using for good, it's about who's the operator behind it. We're not trying to give autonomous capabilities to robots whatsoever. And the narrative about human and doing it for good goes back to what we as humans decide to do and how we use technology for. So it's very clear that this is not a competition where we're trying to recreate what DARPA has done. We're trying to create this connection between humans and machines. How can you have, or anyone has, a remote device or remote avatar that they can control, that can also give them visibility about what's out there. So really is beyond just natural disaster. It's in everything that we do to be helping with Earth stewardship and helping us, but also to explore further and to learn more.
And one thing I love about XPRIZE is the amount of cooperation among teams. This is something I've recognized from my participation in the IBM Watson AI XPRIZE, and I expect to see even more of it in the Avatar XPRIZE. I mean, yeah, of course the teams want to win, but I think all of the competitors realize that the ultimate goal isn't necessarily to single-handedly solve humanity's grand challenges, but is instead to make sure that these challenges are solved, because that benefits everyone. And with a competition such as the Avatar XPRIZE, we're dealing with something that is quite interdisciplinary. This is going to require experts in software and hardware, roboticists, human-computer interaction experts, virtual and augmented reality, and so much more. Is the idea of collaboration something you think about when these prizes are being designed?
Yes, absolutely. The nature of our competitions, and you highlighted that in the IBM Watson AI XPRIZE, is to bring experts and technologists together, is to bring people of different horizons together to come to the best solutions. And sometimes one team may not have all the technologies, as you suggested yourself with the list that you gave in terms of what those avatar teams need to master are, of course, software and hardware and robotics and machine learning and computer vision and network connectivity and sensors and haptics. So the likelihood that one team masters all this technology is low, but at the same time, there are teams that have a lot of those capabilities. But how about we could gather the best individuals and groups that master sensor technology or haptics technology and match them with the best robotics teams? How can we identify a scenario where the best avatar could be designed by a collaboration between different teams that which each get rewarded for the contributions that they make discretely and specifically to one of those areas, and yet contribute to the larger win? We really promote this as a way to not only solve the challenges, but also open doors to many new innovations that may go much beyond the price in terms of new products, new services, new markets, new discoveries that will be discovered through this competition. So the competition by itself is just one pathway to open up new innovation and to discover and to help us discover together and collectively where we are going, but also incentivize new directions for new markets to be opened up. From that perspective, I think many teams will join because their core expertise relies in one area of technology or economy or sociology or human-machine interactions. And by participating, we give them a framework, right? We give them a sandbox to experiment and play and be able to navigate through a direction that they may not have adopted themselves single-handedly.
Yeah, and this Avatar XPRIZE is still in its early stages. Teams have until September 30th, 2019 to register. So who is a good candidate to get involved? And if anyone in my audience is interested and would like to find out more, how can they do that?
We received many interest for participation. Currently, I think we have about 80 teams that have been approved, registered, have been approved. And we had a global summit recently in the month of May for the existing teams. And we expect that we'll have probably about the same amount of teams still joining us by the end of the recruitment period, which is September 30th. Now, registration by September 30th is the deadline, right? The technical deadline that we have for teams to show their interest. They will have a little bit more time to participate and bring right to our attention their capabilities and finalize their applications. We want those teams also to be aware of what teams already are registered and to get inspired by them. But we also believe that many teams that may not have all the capabilities today should be interested in joining because, as you suggested, and I was also highlighting it, we have identified a number of partners that are joining the competition and bring to all the teams specific technical capabilities. For instance, we have partners that can contribute to providing robotic arms or actuators or haptics or sensors or special suits or special augmented reality capabilities. So those capabilities will be given to teams as part of being a competitor. And teams don't have to have all the capabilities from day one. They could gather that over time, or they can partner with others as well, or join forces. So definitely we encourage all the participants or your listeners to consider joining the competition. The competition joining is very easy. There's a form to fill out. There's a competitive agreement to sign. And there's a competition fee, which basically is very light, but it's also a necessity that we have to make sure that teams are serious about it, because it employs so much effort and we do so much for our teams so that they can onboard it and get going and get access to those resources. At the same time, we are working on an international layer of expertise. So many famous individuals and experts are part of our advisory board, are part of our expert network, or the judges. And just having access to those individuals and be able to work with them is one of the benefits of joining the competition. So joining the competition could mean, I'm interested, I'm thinking of partnering with someone, I'd like to join another team. There are many ways, and just starting the process of registration is easy, because then it opens up door to webinars that we have, information sessions, talking to our teams, asking questions about what is it for them, if it's useful for them or not. We have done a number of events in different cities. We've done, of course, one in Pittsburgh, even last year, and we may be able to do another one if needed in Pittsburgh. And we do it in multiple other cities as well, to make sure that we answer questions about what is the importance of joining this competition, who can join, and what do they get out of it. So yes, we definitely encourage everyone to at least consider joining and going to the website, which is avatar.xprize.org, to get more information, to learn more about the guidelines, about the time frame, and also see what other teams are doing and who else is joining.
I will make sure to put links to those resources in the show notes at futuregrind.org for anyone who would like to find out more. Now, in these prizes, there are multiple teams that can end up winning cash. But even for teams and companies that don't win, they often create innovative technologies and go on to have successful businesses. So the impact of these prizes goes far beyond what the winners are actually able to accomplish. Do you have any examples of companies that have formed from XPRIZE competitions that have gone on to have success elsewhere?
Yes, thank you, Ryan. We have numerous examples of that. Usually our observation for the past 25 years has been that any prize purse, by prize purse we mean the cash prize which is given to the winner or winners, usually is multiplied by a factor of 15 to 20 in terms of investment by teams. So let's say if a cash prize is $10 million, we expect with $150 to $200 million of investment or contribution to teams that are participating. So many teams get funded, they get supported, and many investors or other research groups or funders or grants will be made available to teams just by the sheer factor that there are XPRIZE competitors. So it means that they have been validated by judges and they're competing. Out of the teams, a good number of them are startups or organizations that are trying to identify new products and services, and they're usually well-funded throughout the course of the competition by investors as well. So this investment could happen very early on, it could happen later in time. The very first XPRIZE, the Ansari XPRIZE, that got awarded the $10 million purse, got actually acquired by Richard Branson to form the Virgin Galactic organization to travel into space. Many of other competitions in the Nokia Sensing Challenge or the Qualcomm Tricorder or the Ocean Discovery were teams that got funded to pursue new directions in terms of cleaning the oceans or cleaning oil or identifying pathways to provide to remote villages small devices that could help with capturing devices that are right now in field tests in Mozambique. And the number of partners are trying to help them get through the FDA process. We have teams in which I would not name, but people could find it out. We had teams in the IBM Watson XPRIZE that got funding up to $90 million of funding. Some of those teams actually have used the competition so much that they're actually beyond the competition. They're trying to launch products and services that competes with their need to be part of the competition. So sometimes it works very well for them as well. And some teams don't get funding because their pursuit of the competition is not really about a product or service. They're more about academia and research. They may get some grants, but they're not trying to launch a company. So we have a diversity of situations that happens. But in general, we've observed that a factor of 15 to 20 can be applied to the price burst that basically is coming to the competitors.
So another XPRIZE initiative that I'm excited about is your efforts to establish partnerships with various cities. You mentioned having held Avatar XPRIZE events in Pittsburgh, where I'm based, and we're looking to build on this even more. And Pittsburgh has a history of success in XPRIZE competitions. Astrobotic was a leading team in the Google Lunar XPRIZE, RoboTutor was a finalist in Global Learning, Hira Global Tech was a semifinalist in Women's Safety, and both Trashbot and Behavior are still active as we near the end of the AI XPRIZE. And we also have some promising starts in the Avatar XPRIZE. So an example of an XPRIZE Pittsburgh partnership seems like a good one, but it's still in its early stages. So what's the goal for these XPRIZE cities partnerships?
The example of XPRIZE and Pittsburgh is a very good one. The intersection of XPRIZE and city is about really this connection between science and research and entrepreneurship and industry, and also how prizes have a meaning within the city. And for that perspective, XPRIZE is interested in working with specific cities. For instance, there is an XPRIZE Pittsburgh partnership that we're working on. It's basically the partnership of XPRIZE, the whole city of Pittsburgh on multiple fronts: research, deployment, the incubation part, making Pittsburgh a host city for many of the prizes. So this is what we mean by working with cities. We're basically joining forces with a number of cities to help with deployment of AI for good. We're not doing anything directly, right? We're not owning anything. So it's just you are basically in a city, others are in different cities, you have your own effort, but we're also working with them. For instance, compared to creating meetups like a City AI or others that are meetups, we're not trying to do that because they exist already. And this is not the goal of XPRIZE to do that. But the goal of XPRIZE is to actually identify ways where anyone can participate in solving grand challenges. This is our usual narrative. And from that perspective, we're going to be adopting a number of learning and put that into repositories. So we have organically identified with Pittsburgh many areas of collaboration, and we're trying to pursue this now between the two organizations. It simply means that we're going to be working ahead of a prize design in terms of R&D, working with the research entities within a city, but also during the design phase of identifying what the prize could be, also during the operations and launch of the prize, and also throughout the end of the prize, where we do field testing. And field tests are usually tests that are done by teams to showcase and demonstrate their technology or their findings. For instance, the avatars will have a few test cities where we provide to teams an environment to showcase their avatars and test their avatars. So this could be done with the partnership with a city. And with Pittsburgh, the fact that Pittsburgh is well advanced in AI and robotics and has also taken some advanced steps in smart cities and mobility and autonomy makes it a good candidate for at least the Avatar XPRIZE, but also a few others, to continue this collaboration with XPRIZE. So XPRIZE is trying to really anchor long-term relationships. So we'll learn from the city, but also we'll participate with the city, and we'll also give back to the city. So this organic relationship, we're trying to build it with more cities, but in each case, it will be adapted to the culture, the specifics of that city.
And you are recently back from an exciting event. The first Avatar XPRIZE Team Summit took place in Geneva, Switzerland, alongside the AI for Good Global Summit. And the topic of AI for Good is one that you have been closely involved with for a while now. So why don't you tell us a bit more about the AI for Good Global Summit and your role within it?
The notion of AI for Good is not new. We talk about it for the past, I think, 3 years now. It really started in 2015 and 2016 as a narrative. Our experience was in sync with the IBM Watson AI XPRIZE, where we incentivize team to solve a problem with AI and showcase what AI is good for and try to solve the grand challenges with AI. And that open challenge, which was our first, where we did not define for teams what to solve for, but ask the teams to define what they're trying to work on and solve for, was the really initiator of this AI for Good movement for us. We identified through those 150 participants and approved teams in 2016 that they wanted to work on topics such as gender equality, health and well-being, education, protection of environment or wildlife, and poverty mapping. So when we realized that what teams are working is also matching what the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are, we thought that, in fact, while industry is moving forward with development of AI technologies towards a certain number of directions that have immediate benefit for society and economy, such as self-driving cars, digital assistants, optimization techniques, and so forth, there is also this need that is growing, coming from the ground up, of using AI for specific real problems that may not be as big or as sustainably viable from an economic perspective, but needs to be taken care of. So that led us to work with our partners, and one of our partners at the time was the International Telecom Union, to design and to launch this conversation that took the form of a summit about how can we use AI for good, and how can we learn more about this, and how can we share learnings of using AI for humanitarian causes and also for practical matters globally. So that conversation was about how to bring different stakeholders together. So how can we have a conference or an event where academia join forces with entrepreneurs, join forces with investors, and government representative and NGOs and civil society to collectively talk about what are the pathways to make AI usable, how can we govern that, what are the ethical issues, and what technology should be promoted, how can we improve literacy. So all these conversations really, for us, spun out of this one competition, which is the IBM Watson AI Prize, and then got its life of its own, because the need really is there. And now AI for Good is almost a hashtag everywhere, and many corporations are talking about it. Many large organizations have created grants to support AI for Good efforts, initiatives. Many governments are considering it. And there is many reports by research and consultancies on AI for Good. So we are very humbled by our contribution to this, where we serendipitously found that what people and teams across 80 countries want to solve for is really focusing on real problems and using AI for real immediate problems. And that was really the triggering point. So our role as XPRIZE was really to promote the conversation, the content, and the choices of narrative. And we've been very lucky to work with the International Telecom Union that organized, right, and hosted the event in Geneva. And as you suggested, we have had the third iteration this past May in Geneva, and we're continuing every month of May until 2030, which is the culmination of and the goals of Sustainable Development Goals. So this is the handshake that we have and we're working towards. So my role is more about making sure we push the right narratives and we work on the right content. We bring more partners. We push for diversity. We push for more gender. We bring more countries to the conversation. And we ensure that the conversation around AI for Good is a global conversation. And while we have conversations and debates and goals, really it's important to have actions and identifying specific projects that are going to be launched out of this conversation. So we have a number of projects identified. One of the most recent one is last year at the AI for Good in 2018, we identified the creation of a group called AI for Health Focus Group, which is a joint collaboration with ITU and the World Health Organizations around creating benchmark to evaluate medical algorithms to be used and show how those algorithms can be safely used within medical environment. And this year we have had a number of other initiatives. One of them is the AI Commons, which was started about 2 years ago as a concept, and this year really spun out also, and hopefully we'll have a focus group on that as well. So these are examples that we are working on through the AI for Good. But it really is about making sure that we have a good understanding of how AI can be used. So avoid this debate between a dystopian or a utopian narrative, and showcase that AI and extensions of other technologies such as blockchain or robotics and others also could contribute to improvement of our lives and solving real problems. So really the core of all of this is to focus on immediate problems at hand and try to learn collectively from others. How can we leverage our collective knowledge and to pursue solving those problems with AI?
You mentioned the International Telecommunications Union, or ITU, as a partner of yours a few times there. And the ITU, of course, is an agency of the United Nations. And you've been working very closely with the United Nations on this AI for Good summit. What is their interest in AI for Good? And how do the UN Sustainable Development Goals fit into this?
The ITU, or International Telecom Union, is, of course, one of the oldest United Nations agencies, and as such, they are working with a number of members. Most of their members of countries, but also they have private members. This is the only organization of the UN or agency of the UN has private and public members. And a member basically contributes to the progress of the mandate of the ITU, which is connecting everyone everywhere and making sure everybody has access, right, to networks and technology of networks and be both connected to the world. So from that perspective, all agencies of the UN abide by the Sustainable Development Goals. And those basically are 17 goals that have been identified to create a framework to help progress humanity towards solving our biggest challenges. So the first one is no poverty, no hunger, health and well-being for all, education for all, gender equality, protection of the environment and oceans, etc. So all those goals have been framed in a way that helps create a canvas of participation to help advance those themes and topics. And each of them have a number of indicators to help measure the progress. So the International Telecom Union is definitely a very good partner at the AI for Good because they understand very well how the deployment of those AI solutions has to be disseminated in different countries. And they have this experience of working with many countries for dissemination. They're typically giving network licenses and bandwidth licenses, and they work in standardization. They work also in development. So as they work in both, I think they're one of the ideal partners to basically be part of this conversation narrative, to really push the conversation on that, but also have the ability to bring member countries and all their private members to witness and to be privy to those conversations and try to push them and to disseminate them into different countries and make sure that every country and destination or group is taking ownership of that on their own.
So you brought up AI Commons as an initiative that spun out of your work with the AI for Good Summit. And we also discussed the importance of collaboration earlier. And AI Commons is something that has collaboration at its core. So tell me a bit more about this. What is AI Commons and what's its purpose?
The AI Commons is probably one of the most exciting projects that I'm involved with. It resonates with the intention that we put initially with the ITU to create the AI for Good, which was more the conversation. And out of that conversation, meaning gathering of stakeholders, meeting of the minds, and out of that, a number of projects got born and are moving forward. And AI Commons is one of them. Is really, if AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning are going to help solve many problems and help progress in many areas, how can we make sure that everyone has access to AI benefits? How can we make sure that every country, every individual have equal access to the knowledge that comes out of this? So the same way we'll look at reading articles on Wikipedia and everyone have access to Wikipedia as a knowledge base, how can we make sure that everyone can benefit from AI capabilities? And what does that mean? Would that mean that anyone have to become a machine learning specialist or AI practitioner? Probably not. The same way today we used smartphones, we don't have to be an engineer to design a smartphone, but you use a smartphone. The same way we use PowerPoint and Excel or Word as a tool, we don't need to create those software, we can use them. So users of AI have to be using them safely, universally, freely, in some ways, and how can we actually understand how AI can become beneficial to all, and how AI can be democratized for everyone. So while many groups are talking about these topics, the goal of AI Commons is to gather a common knowledge about using AI by everyone and to solve real problems. And as such, not only it aims at gathering a knowledge repository of what AI is good for and how AI can be used in what circumstances, but also it become a way for problem owners and problem solvers to find each other through those resolutions. Many individuals that are entrepreneurs, technologists, researchers are qualified as problem solvers, but problem solvers could be any one of us. At the same time, any one of us witnesses a number of opportunities that we call problems and could identify them and try to solve for them either directly or with other people's collaboration. So this collaboration between problem solvers and owners becomes a necessity, in fact, if we want to scale up. But we need to give everyone the opportunity to see already what has been done, how it has been done, and to create this framework of collaboration. At the same time, as I suggested before, collaboration is not between North and South, or wealthy and not wealthy, or poor or rich, or educated and uneducated. Anyone could be the next problem solver. Anyone could be the next problem owner. And as such, we're trying to identify this universal way where anyone can become a source of contribution or a user, regardless of where they are and how wealthy they are and what type of education they have. So this is a big undertaking, but at least from a vision perspective, the goal is to make sure that everyone has access to benefits of AI equally.
We covered a lot in this conversation, from your work with XPRIZE, specifically the ANA Avatar XPRIZE, to the Cities Initiative, the AI for Good Global Summit, and AI Commons. So what's next? What can we expect from XPRIZE or you or your other initiatives, and what do you have on the horizon?
Again, thank you for this question. We are excited to continue the path that we have been lucky to be engaged with. And our explorations and learning through these different efforts is showing us that from a problem-solving perspective, we owe it to give to every human the opportunity to solve problems. And what does that mean? It means that we have to lower the barrier to entry for everyone to participate. And this is what XPRIZE is going after. This is what XPRIZE is trying to do as the next stage of XPRIZE, not just incentivizing prizes for only technologists, scientists, and experts to solve problems, but really to open up problem solving to a much larger group of individuals everywhere. And for now, we have been lucky to have, for each of our competition, between 40 to 110 countries participate. So we are used to work with a global audience and different culturally distributed audience from different expectations and knowledge. But at the same time, we have not always seen that all these audience having the same tools and capabilities and potential in terms of being able to do what they wanted to do. So our goal is really to promote more global participation, to lower the barrier, and to make it more easy to participate. So that's one thing that we're doing. At the same time, it has appeared that as artificial intelligence and some of those technologies that we qualify as exponential technologies, such as 3D printing, such as quantum computing, CRISPR, robotics, that basically double every 18 months in terms of the capabilities. Therefore, they provide exponential framework and context to solve more problems. We need to make those available to a much larger group of population. And AI, as an example, and data as a requirement for machine learning is not universally available. So XPRIZE is also creating ways to make more AI and data available to all our competing teams, so that once we have new XPRIZes, those teams are tooled and equipped with more technology, more capabilities, more data, more expertise, more AI models, so they can tackle problems without necessarily being the expert of that technology, but the expert of the domain or the problem owner more of that issue. And therefore, by this way, distribute more evenly capabilities of problem solving. And our collaboration with cities will go along that. Our collaboration with some governments that we have done, for instance, in the global learning, we work with the government of Tanzania, where we have trained we've actually identified 2,700 young children to participate in the global learning software testing, where the goal was to, and for everyone's listening, a few years ago, 5 years ago, we created a competition called the Global Learning Competition, funded by Elon Musk. And the goal was to allow a children that is illiterate and that doesn't have access to schools or to teachers to be able to read and write and do basic arithmetic in a very short few months. And not only we incentivized that we had 700 teams participating, this competition was awarded last month, and 2 teams won, one from UK, one from South Korea. But these teams and the finalist teams were given a sandbox, an opportunity in Tanzania, where we work with UNESCO and the World Food Program and government of Tanzania to identify 2,700 children that will receive tablets and software to be tested. So the software is a real test. And teams were from many countries that participated, and they came to Tanzania to do those field tests. So this is an example of how we think about enabling more problem solving at scale and giving the framework and the tools and the opportunities for teams to actually showcase what they can do without being encumbered by logistics or difficulties to actually do those tests or to have access to certain technologies. So yes, this is the path for us moving forward, is to really actually push the boundaries and the limits of how we can incentivize even more people and how we can actually lower the barrier to entry and make problem solving at scale more democratized.
We could have spent an entire episode on any one of these topics, and we've only scratched the surface. So I'll make sure to put links and further reading in the show notes at futuregrind.org for anyone who would like to dive in and learn more. I look forward to seeing these initiatives grow and continuing to work with you to help them succeed. Thanks again for joining me on the podcast.
It's been my pleasure, Ryan. Thank you very much.
Hey everyone, Ryan O'Shea again, and thanks for listening to my interview with Amir. Remember to check out the show notes and more at futuregrind.org. Make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and you can also like, comment, and share to spread the word. We also need your help to keep this podcast running. Just go to futuregrind.org/support. Till next time, this is Future Grind.